Okie dokie. Okie dokie. Hello guys, and welcome back. It is great to see you, though I can't physically see you, but I know that you are right there. So, what are you gonna learn in this video? Well, as you probably saw in the thumbnail, you'll be learning some really cool mental stuff, because this is like an everyday carry effect, or should I say a propless effect. You can use someone's phone. I recommend for the full effect that you use someone's phone or your own phone, but trust me, it's not like any phone magic, or you don't need the phone essentially. You can use something else. It's just everyone has one. So in that way, it's propless. So what will you be learning? Well, my friends, you will be learning a Rain Man style effect, where you seemingly seem to remember a calendar in a split second, and then you are tested to know if you actually do remember. And sure enough, you remember the calendar. And what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. I ask someone, what is your birthday? And they say it's February 21st. And I say, wow, okay. That must have been on a Saturday this year. And okay, bring out your phone, check it. Is this on a Saturday? Yes. Okay, I remembered this year, but let's try something else. Scroll forwards or backwards in your calendar, find a super old year or super far year, maybe just 2 years ahead. Find a year, and then I look at the calendar like, let me just memorize this as good as I can. Take a mental image, like, okay, I got it. Now name another date, and they say 11th of December. A Friday, it's gotta be a Friday. And then they check, and sure enough, it's a Friday. So relatively quickly, you can find out exactly what day of the week a specific date lands on, even though it's hundreds of years into the past. So let's get into learning this. Okay, so some of you might know this principle, and it's not actually a magic trick, but you can dress it up as a magic trick. And I have changed it a little bit to be easier to do mentally. This is a mathematic principle that a lovely mathematician called John Conway came up with to be able to tell what day of the week any date falls on. Now, before we get started, I do have to say that this method is split up into two parts, one of which I have changed to make it 1,000 times easier. And the other one I've changed a little bit for ease of remembering, but it's basically the same. So let's take these two different methods here and look at them. This is the first one that you have to do. This is the one that I have changed. For this method to work, you need to know something called a doomsday. Now that's just because it's called the doomsday algorithm, but it's not an actual doomsday, don't worry. What it is a special day that you have to remember for certain years. Like in 2026, the doomsday, the special day, is a Saturday. So you have to be able to calculate what that special day is for the given year, because it changes every year. And that can be very mentally draining. It can be a tough calculation process for some. I know the method, but I'm far too slow. If you give me any date, I gotta think about it for like 5 minutes before I come up with an answer, and it might be wrong. But there is a much easier way, instead of going through all that mental math and calculation. That is perfectly justified. And why have I changed it? Well, I think it's not necessary, and that's because I looked at it with a pair of magician's eyes to see what better way do we have that doesn't require so much mental gymnastics. And I found a perfectly justifiable way that you would do anyway. If you did it without the method I have and just did it mentally, you could still do this. And I know that doesn't make much sense now, but it will later on, or if you rewatch the video. I don't know why you would though, but if you did, I'm sure it would make sense. Now the other method on this hand, it requires, of course, that you know the doomsday, but there's an easy way to get that compared to the long mental calculation. Now, this part of the method is actually figuring out what day of the week a specific date lands on. And like I said, you need to know the doomsday for that, but once you do, you can relatively easily find out what day of the week it is. Now, this part will still require a little bit of mental math, but it's nothing difficult, and it will require a little bit of things you have to remember. But please don't let that scare you away. Wow. Please don't let that Please don't let that scare you away. It is things that are very easy to remember. I think by the end of the video, even if you haven't tried to remember them, I think if you've just paid somewhat attention, you'll still remember these things because they're super easy to remember. And then you probably just need a little bit of practice with it, and then you're good to go. And you probably don't even need much practice to it, depending on how you want to play this off, because I can show you some different ideas for some different types of effects with this. It's also just a useful skill to have every day. Like when someone names a date, I know, okay, well, that's on Friday. I have time Friday, you know? So it's actually useful as well as a cool trick. So let's get into learning this, okay? Okay, let's give this a shot. Please bear in mind if it's a little shaky. I'm holding the tripod between my legs, so please don't worry about that. Okay. I'm just gonna use cards for believability, so you don't think I've pre-memorized this, but let's start with a month. Our month is the 4th. So that's gotta be April, right? And what date do we have? The 1st of April. So that's gotta be a Wednesday. That's gotta be a Wednesday this year. Let's take a look. The 1st of April, is it a Wednesday? Is it not a Wednesday? The 1st of April is a Wednesday. Would you look at that? It's right there, a Wednesday. It's perfect. So that's the type of thing that you could do with this. Depending on the date you get, you can do it really fast. Some you may require a little bit of more mental gymnastics, but in general, you should be able to find this date very quickly. So let's get into how you can do this. All right, so how can you pull this off? Like I said, there is something called a doomsday. That is a special day you have to remember. And for now, I think we'll just start off by thinking about the doomsday in 2026. Then we can move on how to do it with any other year ever. So the doomsday of 2026 is Saturday. And you just remember that for now, that it's a Saturday. You don't have to remember anything else. Now, how is it that you can tell any day of the week on any date in this year just knowing a Saturday? Well, what you do is actually mentally have some anchor points for every one of the 12 months. That way, let's say you get a date like the 1st of January. We can see here that that date is a Tuesday. And I know that my anchor point for January is January 3rd. And then you can see, all right, if it's January 3rd, that is my doomsday, and I gotta get to 1, I just gotta go 2 days back, which leads me to a Tuesday. So no, January 1st is not a Tuesday, a Thursday, by going 2 days back. That's essentially it. So on every single month, you remember some special dates that you know, and then that way, you just gotta like count how many days to the specific day it is. And then you'll know what day of the week it is. Now that may sound complicated now, but I'll get into more detail and show you how easy it can be, because right now it may seem a little confusing if you're thinking about, okay, well, if I know January 3rd is my doomsday and they say January 31st, how in the world am I supposed to know what day that is? We'll get into that because it's super easy. But for now, let's get into how you can remember a date for every month. Because trust me, it is so insanely easy. All right, let's get into remembering these dates for every month. And I promise that they're super easy, so let's start with the ones that are the hardest. So I will just whip out a new canvas here and pick a lovely pencil that doesn't look super weird. sketching. Let's grab this and with a black color, right? You can see me, right? Yeah, I really sincerely apologize for my handwriting. It's gonna be so bad. Yeah, but let's start with the hardest months to remember. Like I said, January 3rd. Oh, dogs are barking at something. January 3rd. Haha, Jan 3rd. I told you it would be bad. Is one of your anchor points. That is a doomsday. And it will be the same for every year. So just remember January 3rd. And the reason why I think this one is one of the hardest to remember is that it doesn't really fit into any nice metric systems like the others. It just seems random. But if you want to remember a story for January 3rd, you can just remember that after New Year's Eve, like you're probably not going to be doing anything for January 1st and January 2nd. It's probably about the 3rd that you start to like get your life back. So you can remember that. So that's one of the hardest ones out the way. All right, so we had January 3rd. It's one of the tougher months to remember. Now let's get into the two other tough months, which are February and March. Those ones are also tougher to remember. They're not difficult to remember, but they are tougher because these months are basically identical. So for both of them, you just got to remember 7. First of all, the 7th is a doomsday for both these months. But not only that, it's the table of 7th. So the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. I did the 8th before that one. So just for February and March, just remember that it's the table of 7th. And this one's tough because, like I said, there's no easy way to remember it. You just got to remember, all right, February and March is just the table of 7th. So those are the 3 toughest months to remember. I promise you that they are actually the toughest. Maybe I should bring the camera a little bit closer so you can see this horrible handwriting. That's lovely, isn't it? All right, let's move on. Okay, let's take 5 very easy months and just get them out of the way. It is 4, so the 4th of April. And then it is 6, and then it is 8, and then it is 10. That was horrible. Hold on. Let me just start over here. 10. And lastly, it is 12. That could not be any easier to remember. That is just the equal numbers. 4, 4, 6, 6, 8, 8, 10, 10, 12, 12. Super easy to remember. And now you're only 4 months away from having an anchor point for every year. So remember that. Let's get that a little prettier. Yay! Okay, remember that. You got it? Good, let's move on. Okay, let's get into the 4 final months. And there's just a little rhyme you have to remember. It's not really a rhyme, but it's a very easy sentence that gives you 4 dates, and it's super easy to remember. You just have to remember, I work a 9 to 5 and 7-11. That gives you 4 more months. And you may think, how? Well, it gives you 9 to 5. So 9, 5. That's a month. And it also gives you 5, 9. Not only that, it gives you 7, 11, and 11, 7. That's it. And it doesn't matter how you place them. And what I mean by that is that in some countries, you have the month before the day, the date, and sometimes you have the date before the month. Here in Denmark, we have it so it's day, month, year. But for this, don't worry about that because it doesn't matter how you orient them, it will always be the same. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's quickly recap these, and I apologize for the layout. I am an artist, but I am by no means good at handwriting. So we got January 3rd, the day you get your life back. February and March, just the table of 7th. And then 5 more months down here, the 4, 4, 6, 6, 8, 8, 10, 10, 12, 12. Then you got 9 to 5 at 7-11. That's all you need to remember. Then you can pull this insanely cool trick off. So let's get into how you do that. Okay, so like I said, you need to know a doomsday of the year. And like we said from earlier, 2026's doomsday is a Saturday. And the funny thing is, all those dates that you just learned, they all land on a Saturday. You see, January 3rd is a Saturday. February 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th, they're all Saturdays. The same for March 7, 14, 21, 28, they're all Saturdays. And for April, that's 4-4. So, you got the 4 right there on a Saturday. And May is the 5th month. And then you got to remember 9 to 5. So it's the 5th month. So it's got to be the 9. And the 9 is indeed, on a, god damn, it is indeed on a Saturday. And then you have the 6th month, which is, as you remember, 6-6. And you find the 6, and sure enough, it is on a Saturday. Then you have the 7th month, and then it's, as you know, 7-11. So, and the 11th is indeed on the doomsday, a Saturday. Then you have August 8-8 and the 8th, and so on for the rest. I don't think I need to explain any further. But now you know that for every month, you should know a doomsday. So let's think about how you calculate it. Let's start with something super easy. My birthday, December 11th. We know that December is 12/12, so we find 12/12 in our head, and that's here. And we know that this is a Saturday. The 12/12 is a Saturday. So it was the December 11th. If the 12th is a Saturday, then what is the 11th? Yeah, it's a Friday, right? It's a Friday. So that's how I can know that December 11th is on a Friday. And that's all you have to do. But now you may wonder, like I said from the beginning, what if they name like a really high number and your checkpoint, your doomsday is so far away from that? Well, let's dive into that. Let's say you take April. Your doomsday is April 4th, but they said April 23rd. How in the world are you gonna get there? Well, I promise you that it's not that hard, and it really isn't, because you have the 4th here, and what you can do to get closer to it is just jump weeks ahead. And how do you jump weeks ahead? You plus 7. So 4 plus 7, that's 11. You're still on a Saturday, but you're closer. Now you do it again. 11 plus 7, that's 18. So now you're at 18. It's closer, but it's not quite there. Now you plus 7 again, and you're at 25. Now, all of a sudden, you're only 2 days away. So you think, okay, well, it's a Saturday. We got to go 2 days back to land on the 23rd. So we just think Friday, Thursday, and there you go. It's a Thursday. You landed on a Thursday. And that's how you do this. Now let's try to do this without looking at a calendar. And you can try to think along if you'd like. Okay, so let's try without the calendar. And I'll use playing cards to randomize our date, and then we can try along. So our month is the 8th, so that's August. And we already know that it's the 8th, so our doomsday is also an 8 because 8-8. And our date will be the 3rd. And I think we're already close enough to go from the 8th to the 3rd. That should only be 5. So we gotta go 5 days back. And 5 days back, I just remember that's the same as going 2 days forward. So that should be a Monday, right? So the 3rd of August should be a Monday. Come on, there you go. 3rd of August, indeed so. It is a Monday. So, that's nice. Cool. Okay, before we jump into how to do it with different years, let's quickly just do some tips and tricks, because you just saw me utilize one of them. And it's when it comes to counting the days. Let's say you are 5 or 4 days apart from a day. Mentally, it can be difficult to count the days backwards, like Saturday, okay, then Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, 5 days back. Okay, cool. What you can do, however, is just remember that 5 days back is the same as 2 days forward. Or the other way around, that 5 days forward is the same as 2 days back. You could also use it with 4, that 4 days forward is the same as 3 days back. It's just a little piece of advice. You don't have to use it. If it's confusing to you, then just do it however you like. Another thing you could do is put numbers on each day, like that Monday is 1 day, Tuesday is Tuesday, Wednesday's 3 day, Thursday's 4 day, Friday's 5 day, Saturday's 6 day, and Sunday is none day. You may think, why not 7? Well, it makes more sense for the calculation for it to just be 0. So now let's say that you're in a scenario where your doomsday is on a Tuesday, of course only if you're working with different years. But let's say that it is on a Tuesday, which you know is a 2, and you gotta go 3 days forward. Well, then you just go 2 plus 3, that's 5, and then it's a 5 day, a Friday. Just a little extra tip. Now, finally, let's get into how to do this with any other year just in 2026. And like I said, we have to know the doomsday of that year. There's also another thing we have to take into account, which is leap years. And I'll discuss that a little bit later. Because when you have a leap year, if the date month or if the date named is in January or February, you're gonna be smushed because you're gonna get the date wrong by 1 day. But it's very easy counter. I'll get into that as long as I teach you how we find our doomsday for any year. Because think about this, now we're moving into more like the magic thinking here. When you ask someone for their birthday and you figure out what day of the week it is, what's only natural is that they take out the calendar and check and look if it's on that date. So now you have a calendar open because they're naturally gonna check if it's right. Now you can tell them to scroll to any year. So instead of calculating the doomsday of this year, say we got 2091 here, you just look at the calendar for 2021 and you look at, for example, one of your doomsdays. I like to go for the 12/12. And I can see my 12/12 here is a Wednesday. So my doomsday for this entire year is a Wednesday. And that's how you spot that. So another year, 2089. Sorry, wait, what? No, 98. And I see my doomsday here is a Friday. And now I'm set for this year. Now there's only one other thing you have to look for when you look at the calendar, which is the end of February. Because most of the time, February will end with 28th. But if it's a leap year, let's see if we can find one, it will end with 29. Where there? Here's a leap year. You see February ends with 29. Now you know it's a leap year. So what do? You know that your date here, your doomsday, is a Friday, but you also see that it's a leap year. What do? Don't panic. You just do exactly like you did before and you'll be good. So if it's my birthday, December 11th, well, if it's a Friday, then it's a Thursday. If it's August 9th, well, 8/8 is for this year a Friday, and it's the 9th, so you just go forward 1 day and then it's a Saturday. But if the date just so happens to be in January or February, what do? Because it's a leap year. Well, you still do exactly like you did before, but once you have your result, just go 1 day back. That's it. You just find your result and go 1 day back if it's a leap year and they happen to name either January or February. Let's try February 15th, okay? This is a leap year, but we still just remember that February follows the table of 7, so let's try to get as close to 15. So that's 7, 14. Okay, it's 14. That's as close as we get. So we gotta jump 1 day forward. And like I said, this year it's a Friday. So that would make our day of the week a Sunday. But then we remember it's a leap year. Now we found our result, oh sorry, not Sunday, a Saturday. We found our result to be Saturday, but we also know it's a leap year, so we just gotta go one day back to Friday. So, and as we can see here, February 15th is a Friday. So it's very, very easy fix. And I'm sorry if I'm overcomplicating it. I'm trying to do my best to explain it. But just remember, if there's a 29, it's a leap year. If they name January, February, once you find your result, go back one day and you'll be good. Okay, so that sort of wraps everything up. I think I do want to do a quick recap for you for what you need to do when you perform this. First of all, just remember that in 2026, your doomsday is a Saturday. And if you're watching this and it's not 2026, just remember the dates I taught you and just look in your calendar and see where some of those dates fall, because it's all the same day, and then you know, just like you do when you do this for any other year. So, let's recap. So you could ask someone for their birthday, say that you remembered the calendar of this year, and they say, what's your birthday? And they give you your birthday, and then you think about it, and then you spit out your answer and say, that's a Wednesday. So go ahead and pull out your phone and look at the date. Is it a Wednesday? Yeah. Okay, cool. So you see your calendar here, just try and scroll to a completely random year. I'll try my best to like take a mental image of it, try to remember it. And okay, I think I got it. Name a date that given year, and then name a date, and again you spit out the date or the day of the week, and you can do that again and again and again, and it's just cool to be able to do. Plus it's useful in everyday life and situations. But if you want to make this a little bit more magical, what can you do? Well, first of all, you gotta get really fast with this calculation, and then you gotta drop a little buck on Digital Force Bag X by Mark Kirstein, because then you could do this. I'm not quick enough with the calculation yet because I haven't practiced it that much, but I know it and I can do it relatively quickly. But let's say that you say that I made a prediction on my phone, and do you know what date you were born, right? But you don't know what day it is. No. Try and whip out your calculator and go to a completely different year, maybe a year you weren't even born in, and find your birthday on that year and just remember what day it is. Just remember what day it is, okay? You know what day it is? I think you can easily tell everyone what date it was. Just don't say what day it is. And they say a date, and you say, so you don't know what day that is? You don't know what day that is? But only you know what day that is. And then obviously you can calculate the day, and then you Digital Force back your way into your notes, and you open it up and it says, it's funny that I knew that on that specific year your birthday would be on a Tuesday. And it just adds a little bit of extra layer to this, because first of all, how would you have made that prediction in the first place? Because you made it like yesterday. I mean, you know, Digital Force bag, if you have it, you can change it to whatever you want it to. It's a force bag. But first of all, like, you made that prediction and you didn't do it right now. You didn't just write it. Second of all, they never told you the day. And there's just no way that you can calculate it that fast. They were not gonna think that anyone can do that unless they're like some mega genius. So that just adds a little bit of more magic to that whole thing. But anyways, I think that wraps up the entire instructions and videos for how to do this. And I want to say thank you to John Conway for coming up with this mathematical principle so many years ago, and for me to discover it on YouTube and learning it, because it is a pretty cool and useful thing. And I hope you'll learn it too, even though it does seem a little daunting, a lot of things happening, but trust me, it's not all that difficult. It seems difficult, but it's very easy. So please give it a try, and bye-bye.